about the day with trial attorney Byron Browne joining me right now. Byron, this is key testimony for the defense, hoping to convince the jury that Andre Warner his life should be spared. They should sentence him to life without parole. Even his mother taking a moment to talk about how she would go to visit him, how she would still support him while incarcerated. What were your thoughts about how the morning went? Anything that really stood out to you?
What stood out to me was just that I don't believe the story the mother is saying rises to the level to garner sympathy with the jury enough to spare him the death penalty. I think she's described a relationship that she was in that wasn't very good for her, but I don't believe that relationship negatively impacted Warner in such a manner that anybody is going to believe that the first-degree murder that he committed does not deserve the death penalty. I mean, I could be wrong, but from what I've heard, I think the mom has described something that unfortunately a lot of people go through, and I don't believe it rises to the level to create sympathy enough within the jury that the jury will back away from the death penalty.
And really, this jury has a lot of knowledge already through the prosecution's case and these aggravating factors. Yesterday, even hearing about Andre Warner's criminal history, his past violent behaviors, domestic abuse situations that we're hearing his mother suffered, and then that he allegedly and pled to with a former girlfriend in a relationship. The jury's seeing injuries of that. When does it come a point that maybe these jurors are thinking, are these just excuses for what he did? Will they be able to set aside this brutal, heinous murder? At the same time, I don't know if you're looking in the gallery, but the mother of the victim is there, sitting there today. She wasn't there first thing, but she's there, almost to this jury like a constant reminder. No matter what you hear this defense say, remember my son, Adam Hilaire.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the jury is looking at, hearing what the mother is saying and from other people and thinking it's just that, it's excuses. I mean, what the kid went through, like I said before, is probably like a lot of kids' upbringings, and I just don't believe it rises to the level. And if you're sitting there in the jury, you want to hear something that unfortunately rises to the level of startling or something that you haven't heard of before, something that's so traumatic that leads you to believe, okay, this young man just didn't have a chance at life and he went down the wrong path and we should spare his life and give him another opportunity, I guess, to spend life in jail. But I don't believe that's happening. What I believe happening is just a lot of excuses. And I think the amount of time that we're hearing this, at some point, you've said enough and you have to move on with the mother specifically. And so I don't think they're doing any favors in that regard either.
One thing the jury did hear about through the mother, Tracy Warner, is that one of the boyfriends that she had in and out of her life and that was part of Andre Warner's life, there was no consistent, I guess, father figure. One of those issues, like you said, that a lot of people go through when they grow up. They don't have a consistent father figure. And there was one moment that seemed to affect Andre Warner that she discussed. Let's watch.
She was making a physical movement. I want the jury to be able to see that.
It's like Willie would have been standing here, and I was up here, and Andre ran up to him, and he just like shoved him away, and said and he talked to the girlfriend and said he don't know who his daddy is, and he just like gently shoved him. He didn't push him, but he did like shove him away.
Did he say anything? You can sit down.
Yeah, he just, like I said, he said he don't know who his daddy is. He told the girlfriend.
Did he say anything else about Andre thinking everyone was his daddy?
Everyone was his daddy, yes.
Okay, tell the jury what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said he don't know who his daddy is. He thinks everyone's his daddy.
How did Andre respond to that?
Andre was a little taken aback. He looked sad, and I just, once again, I took him away from the situation, and we just left.
So that's one situation the jury is hearing about, Andre Warner's upbringing. Now, let's talk about the beginning of this cross-examination, Byron, because the prosecutor, Bondi Johnson, is really picking up a theme. I keep hearing him so far on his cross talk about how Andre, growing up, was always described as kind-hearted, a giving person, a generous child and person, even though he had absentee fathers and a mother who was abused in toxic relationships, maybe wasn't given the examples he should have had growing up. Here, where do you think this cross-examination is ultimately going?
I don't know. It's a really good question. I mean, I wish I knew, but I feel like they're just almost asking questions to ask questions. At this point, that's what I believe, because usually you can tell from another lawyer the line of questioning the lawyer is going down and the goal in that line of questioning. But I mean, I think it's just more of the same. I think they keep bringing up things that I think the jury is sitting there and likely thinking are excuses as opposed to justifiable reasons to allow someone off of the death penalty in this particular case. But to your point, we don't know where he's going. And that's part of his job, is to inform the jury through questions of the story he's trying to tell. And if a jury can't follow you, then a jury isn't going to believe you at the end of the day.
That's a good point. Also, the jury hearing a lot about Andre Warner through photos of his family. They learned that he is a father of 2 children and claimed his stepchildren as his own through previous relationships. They're also seeing photos of him with his little brothers and his little sister. One key moment that stood out to me, and we've spoken previously to Tracy Warner, was about the daddy-daughter dance. We expect this jury will also hear from his little sister, Amanda. She will testify in mitigation, but there's also a photo. It may be one of these photos coming up where, there it is right there. Andre Warner, his tie matching his little sister's dress. She chose him to go to her daddy-daughter dance. So again, his mother, Tracy, trying to paint him as a good father, as someone who stepped in, helped take care of her other children, and even his mother. She told the jury at one point when she was in an abusive relationship, Andre took her in to stay with him at his home. Will that make some headway for this jury, at least to humanize him, especially with him sitting there showing some emotion?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to humanize him when you hear stories like this. And obviously, they bring up fond memories. And I think anybody who's sitting on the jury likely has an experience that they can reflect back upon. And that's what you want to do as a trial lawyer. You want to have the jury in their mind relating to the person, in this case, Warner. And I think they're doing a good job of that to humanize him. But again, I think the things that they're bringing up are similar things that everybody has dealt with in their life. And I don't believe it's enough to get him off the death penalty.
Thank you so much for your thoughts, Byron. Ultimately, as you know, it takes just one juror who isn't comfortable imposing that death penalty, because it takes all 12 of those jurors to agree for death. Otherwise, it's life without parole. We shall see when that decision does come, but stick with us now. We'll continue to break down the penalty phase of Andre Warner in Bartow, Florida. This is Court TV, your front row seat to justice.